We just announced that we're going to be talking about womb health. The womb is a place where all things happen. That's how we all got here. So our guest today is Chantal Blake. She is a holistic menstrual health educator and writer with a professional background in nursing, environmental engineering, and peristeam hydrotherapy. I'm sure she'll go into that during the talk today. She weaves the fields of medicine, environmentalism, and holistic self-care into fascinating and practical instruction for women of all ages. Since 2019, Chantal has helped hundreds of women experience healthier periods and greater allyship with their female design through consultations, courses, and private coaching. Her work continues to reach an ever-growing audience through published articles, podcasts, interviews, and speaking engagements. As a world traveler and serial expat, Chantal has learned how to communicate her heartfelt desire to see women flourishing in their female design across cultures, contexts, and languages. As a wife and mother of three, she is extremely passionate about nurturing a legacy of women who love their periods, honor their wombs, and protect their fertility for generations to come. Chantal Blake recently penned her first book, Peaceful Periods, Holistic Womb Care for Teens, which is now available for pre-order, and we will put that information in the chat. Without further ado, I would like to bring on our host, Abdul Hakim. Are you there? Welcome, Brother Abdul Hakim.
Warm welcome to you and to everybody who has joined us this wonderful Thursday evening. Again, we are blessed to be back together once again. And, you know, each week serves as a course of study and a course for further information. We have, by God's grace, been blessed to hear so many individuals give us insight into very important areas of our lives. And obviously, the beginning of all of our lives, or the nurturing of our lives, started in the precious womb of our mothers. So regardless to what we have attained thus far, we have to give honor. As the divine scripture teaches us, we must reverence the wombs of our mothers that bore us. Some of you may say, well, you know, I'm not really pleased with the way how you were reared, etc., etc. However, you wouldn't have no rearing, and you wouldn't have no opportunity to fix any problem that you have if your mother did not carry you in her precious womb for 9 months. And because we know our future is attached to the health and the well-being and the vitality of our women, we want to ensure that women have strong, healthy wombs so that we can look forward to a strong, healthy generation coming forward. Would you agree?
Yes.
Every generation must improve upon the one that preceded it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If we start our nurturing in the womb, let's get scientific and let us have a deep dive into how to enjoy healthy wombs, okay? So with that said, as Sister has already been introduced, my job is just to present our scientist today, our wonderful sister, who is all the way in Africa, and she's taken time out of her schedule to speak to us this evening. So let us take our devices off mute and prepare to hear our great scientist, Sister Chantal Blake. Take your devices off mute and receive our sister with love and appreciation. Welcome to Spiritual Injection, Sister Chantal.
Welcome, sis.
Welcome, sister.
Welcome, sister.
Welcome, sister.
Welcome,
What was it saying? It was
Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's I'm honored to be sharing time with you and sharing space with you, no matter where you're tuning in. I'm currently in Dakar, Senegal, but born and raised in New York City. So definitely appreciating the international nature of our audience today. So the topic I've been asked to present about is 8 powerful habits to master womb health. And I'm really so elated that this is even a topic, that this conversation is happening more regularly and more fluently, and not just women's spaces, but in community spaces, family spaces, because all of us are affected by womb health. I mean, there's no greater foundation. And when you think about how you came into existence, you were in the womb of your mother, and actually your pre-existence, your very early follicles that were not yet eggs were in your mother when she was still in the womb of your grandmother. So all of the eggs we ever have, we have as a 20-week-old fetus. The largest amount of eggs we'll ever have is as a 20-week-old fetus, which means that your mother was carrying you in her little ovaries. She was carrying you while she was still inside your grandmother. And so I feel like it's such a powerful way that we shape the generation that's coming after us, because already we're holding our future inside of our wombs. We're holding our future inside of our ovaries. And you might have been impacted by the care that your mother and your grandmother received or didn't receive. And so it's our work, if we're willing to step into it, it's our work and our opportunity to set the foundation for healthy wombs to descend from us, especially those of us who are women, and for the brothers who are here with us to support the women in our life so our communities bring forth healthy children. Development is not starting at birth, it's starting within the womb, right? It's starting inside and making sure that that first home is the healthiest, most thriving, flourishing, nurturing place to begin life. That's our future right there. That's the essence of it. So really excited that you all care enough to be here tonight and to have this conversation with us. Oftentimes when we talk about health, especially holistic advice, sometimes it's like a laundry list of things to stop doing or not do. And they may be things that we really love or enjoy, what not to eat, what not to do. Take it off of your list. Or sometimes we're inundated with a list of things we need to start doing and start eating and start applying to our lives. And both of those can be really challenging. It's hard to let go of things that you really enjoy and feel connected to. It's also hard to take on new things when you already feel maxed. You're already at your capacity. You don't have space to do one more thing for yourself. You're already trying to keep up with the most basic level of self-care. So what I really wanted to do was present the habits in a balanced way, where there are some habits that are habits of release, and then there are some habits that are habits of restore. And I intentionally say restore because I do believe it is our birthright to have wholesome, healthy wombs. We have not always been struggling. I mean, honestly, when you think about the generations, womb to womb, keeping humanity alive, we could not have always been in the state that we're in now. We're in a state that is a more recent reality. Some would attribute it to more recent events in our historical lives. But I would say that this has not always been our reality. Struggling with painful periods, having our uteruses cut out of our bodies, struggling with fibroids and pain, and all of these things have not always been our reality. So I say that there are habits for us to restore, to get back to the wellness that really is our birthright. And so to begin, when I talk about habits to release, I want to start with the first, which is not something that you might be thinking about, but it's extremely important. The first habit, powerful habit that I really think is important is for us to release an ill opinion of the Creator and how we've been created. There is a fundamental idea that's pervasive, and some trace it to certain origins and certain religious traditions, but just this idea that being a woman is a curse, it's a burden. It is a lifetime of pain and difficulty and hardship, and that's just what it means to be a woman. And so maybe we've heard that in maybe Judeo-Christian text sources, but even if we don't hear that from religious sources, it's pervasive in the culture. You go to a doctor right now with your challenges, a gynecologist, an obstetrician, you talk about womb challenges that you're facing, and oftentimes even our medical providers are saying, well, That's just what it means to be a woman. It's like that, you know, some are just like that. And so that idea is so deeply rooted that womanhood equals suffering, equals pain, equals difficulty. And I think to first begin to shift that, we have to think well of how we've been created. If we believe that we've been created by a loving, merciful creator, then we need to know that that merciful, all-wise, loving creator chose us to have wombs with purpose and for a reason. It's not a source of punishment. Having a period is not a source of punishment, which is another conversation that kind of is just out there. People assuming that, oh, period is some form of punishment for something someone else did, or some punishment for how we're living or what we're doing or the times that we're in or other people's sins. Have a good opinion that your Lord created you with purpose, created your womb with intentionality and intelligence and wisdom, and know that any symptom that we experience in our body is a tool of communication. It is a way that our body is trying to communicate a message to us. And then we have to decide what we're going to do with that message. How are we going to respond to that message? Are we going to ignore it? Are we going to suppress it? Are we going to pop some pain medication and say, I got things to do? Or are we actually going to sit with our bodies and listen to the messaging that is being communicated through the symptoms, the sensations, and the experiences that we're feeling? The second habit of release that I think is extremely important is to release our dependence on chemical products for any and everything. We want to clean our homes and we're looking for, certain brands that we might have grown up with, certain cleaners that might have a kind of cultural or social significance to us that symbolize what a clean house is. And we don't realize we are bathing and basking in chemicals upon chemicals that are disrupting our hormonal wellness, right? Everything from the disinfecting cleaners that we're using to clean our tub, the dishwashing liquid, it's blue, it's bubbly, and it smells like some manufactured scent. We are surrounding ourselves with so many chemicals that are considered endocrine disrupting chemicals, which means that they impair our body's ability to create healthy hormones for themselves. Either they mimic a hormone, and so as a result, our body doesn't make the appropriate levels of estrogen, for example, that we ought to, because we're being confronted with these kind of hormone mimickers or estrogen-like chemicals in the chemicals that surround us. So this dependence on chemical products may start in our home, how we clean our home, how we clean our floors and our dishes and our detergent and our clothes. But also it also translates to our skincare, right? What are we washing ourselves with? What are we moisturizing ourselves with? What are we shampooing our hair with? So this dependency on chemical products is something else we need to release, and knowing that we can have clean homes, we can have sanitized, hygienic homes and clean, hygienic bodies without dousing ourselves and our loved ones in chemicals that we can't even pronounce, that disrupt our hormonal wellness, that affect how our hormones are produced and expressed in our lives, as well as the lives of those around us in our household. The third habit of release that I identified was that we also need to really release the belief that our natural God-given form needs to be altered to be beautiful. And this is especially true when it comes to the makeups that we apply that also have hormone disrupting chemicals. This applies directly to the relaxers that we were told would make our hair more beautiful, more attractive to others. Whatever kind of hair products that we've been using, or body care products that we've been using, that just keep telling us that our natural form is just not good enough. So we need to cover it up, we need to conceal it, we need to straighten, we need to do all of this modification. That's another area that we really, it would serve us well, and it would serve our wounds well for us to interrogate that and question that and wonder what is so unacceptable about my natural God-given form that I'm really using all of these different means and methods and chemicals to alter the way I've been designed to be. And the last habit that I think is especially important for us to release is this idea about productivity and having to always earn your rest, and your value is connected to what you do and what you can produce. And so this is a myth to me, because no CEO, no entrepreneur, no manual labor, no architect, no engineer, no one can compare the productivity that they can quantify to the productivity that's inherent to the female being. We create tissue, we produce eggs, we produce babies, we produce milk. Our female bodies are always producing. We are inherently productive. So this idea that we have to earn our rest, we need to keep working and hustling. And obviously for many of us, that could have been our socioeconomic reality for a period of time. But when those habits become ingrained and become a part of us, we begin to associate our identity with this same concept. I have to produce, I have to do, I have to work. That's how I earn my rest. That's how I earn my money. That's how I demonstrate my value and worth in the world. And so when we can't even allow ourselves to take rest and to know that we're inherently valuable and worthy, then we find ourselves stuck in these hamster wheels of activity and action and go, go, go. And this is something that directly impacts our womb health. When we are constantly going, pushing harder and harder, our cortisol levels or our stress hormones are raised. And when we keep sustaining high levels of stress for long periods of time, it communicates to our body that you are not safe enough to release an egg. You're not safe enough to have a healthy period. You're not safe enough to have libido. All of your energy needs to be occupied in just keeping you alive, right? And so our biochemical reality doesn't distinguish stress on a job from running from my life. Biochemically, it's all the same stress. It's all the same threat. Survival mode is still survival mode, whether the threat is imagined or real in our physical environment. So that is another habit that is definitely impacting our womb health as a community, definitely impacting our hormonal wellness and our hormonal balance for sure. So paired with that, there are habits that we need to restore. One of those habits is the birthright, right? This idea that it is our birthright to feel well and whole in our bodies. This normalizing pain and dysfunction is getting compounded over time until we can't ignore it anymore. So from the time girls are prepared for their first period, they're taught to medicate their pain, or they're taught to go on birth control to manage difficult periods. And we just keep normalizing the suppression of our body's symptoms, the suppression of what needs to be expressed, the suppression of what needs to be addressed. We just keep suffocating it, suppressing it. And we do that until we can't ignore it anymore. Till decades down the line, we're having difficulty conceiving, or we look pregnant because we have fibroids growing in our wombs, or we're struggling with endometriosis, and everything related to our womb and pelvis is incredibly painful. So just this idea that we really need to restore that we can be well and whole in our bodies, and this idea that anyone should be enduring pain, thinking that it is normal or perfectly fine or doesn't need to be addressed, is really a myth, right? Your life and your energy is, your life is valuable enough to pursue wellness and to be healthy and to live pain-free. There's no other pain that I'm aware of that we normalize the way we do period pain. Literally, women will be passing out from period pain, and we have nothing to offer but sorry, it sucks to be a woman. This is the narrative that's given to us. Another habit that's incredibly important. Oh, one last thing I'll say about that. If you follow the trail for all of the major reproductive disorders we see now, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, fertility challenges, etc., all of them can be rooted in menstrual dysfunction. If you follow the trail back, it begins with an imbalanced period, an unhealthy period. And because we're not taught in the beginning how to recognize what a healthy period is or how to address those signs of an unhealthy period. We're just seeing this compounded hormonal dysfunction resulting in these symptoms and these diagnoses and conditions that we can no longer excuse or we can no longer ignore. The next habit that I would say we really need to restore is just getting back to consuming wholesome and homemade foods, foods that we know what they are, we know how they grow, we know where they come from, preferably locally sourced. And I know that's really challenging in our modern reality, because it's like, who has time to cook anymore? Who has time to buy proper food? I know people who shop once a month, and so everything that they buy has to be non-perishable because they're not going back to Walmart or Costco or wherever they're going until another month's time. And so when you constantly have this shelf-stable, preserved food, you're not having the nourishment that comes from real food and real home cooking. You cannot compare frozen, canned, preserved foods to home cooked food, especially made with love and intention and with wholesome ingredients. We also need to restore our awareness of our fertility, and this is a big one. There are a lot of women who are deathly afraid of being pregnant when they don't want to be. And as such, they are offered hormonal birth control, synthetic birth control, and told that it's not going to affect you. Just stay on it until you want to have a baby, and then you'll be perfectly fine. And what happens in the process is that we're normalizing suppressing ovulation. We're told, take birth control, it'll regulate your period. But we're not being told that you have no period at all when you are on birth control. You bleed, but that's a withdrawal bleed. It's not a period because you're not ovulating, right? If you were ovulating, then you can get pregnant, and birth control can't work that way. So once upon a time, we as women, we knew when we were fertile. We knew how to read the signs of fertility. We knew when to plan for intercourse to conceive and when to avoid it to not conceive. We knew which herbs to take to support our conception or prevent conception. This is wisdom that we've had, and this is in our lineage, but we don't know it anymore. And so as a result, we default to medical pharmaceuticals, synthetic hormones, IUDs. We're literally putting copper devices sitting inside of our body that are inflammatory and are creating inflammation. But still, when we don't know that there are ways to understand our body and to restore our trust and our allyship with our body, then we feel like, well, this is the only thing I can do because I can't get pregnant now, like by no means necessary. So that's the next habit that I would love to see us do, is restore our understanding and our awareness of our own fertility instead of handing over our reproductive management to a very profitable pharmaceutical industry. And the last habit of restoration that I want to invite us to is to remember our sacred self-care. Once upon a time, practices that restored and protected womb health were passed down from mother to daughter, from auntie to niece. Women knew what to do when things were off. They knew which herbs to take. They knew how to massage themselves. They knew how to wrap their wombs, right? They knew how to set up saunas and pelvic steaming, vaginal steaming for themselves. They knew how to benefit from herbal sweat lodges and to really immerse themselves in the healing practices that we've been doing for millennia. Modern medicine is a very recent reality. We have been sustaining and nurturing ourselves for much longer. And so that last invitation is to really get back to some of those self-care practices, get back to those wound care practices that have been protecting and maintaining our fertility for generations. And so would love to hear what are some of your thoughts, your questions, your comments on how do those powerful habits land with you, which ones feel a little bit more daunting or more inviting than others. I would really love to hear your feedback.
Before you hear our feedback, we're going to thank you for what you just shared. So we are indebted to you for what you just shared, because it rolled off your tongue so naturally that I was asking myself the question, should every mother before conceiving know what you have shared with us in the last
Certainly.
20 minutes?
Certainly. I believe what I'm sharing, I believe every young woman should know even before she crosses that rite of passage into womanhood. She needs to know the power that she's holding within her and know the responsibility to protect it, especially while she's still young and there's not a lot of competing tugs and pulls. If that can just be our foundation, that having a healthy period is just a normal part of life, that would really be my vision. And that's what, I wrote a whole book about. That's my prayer for the coming generations.
And we're going to get to that great book before we conclude today, because what you've shared is very mind-blowing. And why do you think, dear sister, that what you have shared is not taught in every school around?
Excellent question. I do, some would say that people fear how powerful it is for women to have that knowledge and that understanding. Our ignorance is very profitable for a lot of people. So willingly or unwillingly, I think being kept in that ignorance, there are many people who benefit. I do feel like there has been very few cultures and civilizations have been uninterrupted by either enslavement, colonization, immigration of some sort. All of us have, for the most part, internationally, have some kind of disrupted lineage happening, some kind of disturbance to our transmission of culture and understanding. You also have this kind of globalized reality where people are being pushed to urbanize and conform to a certain lifestyle that's not actually in their heritage or, in their recent upbringing. So I do feel like on one hand, the conventional medical model is very limited. The only tools that most doctors are trained in is pharmaceuticals and surgery. Those are very profitable tools to have. I don't think they genuinely know what other tools exist, but they wouldn't profit as much if we did know.
And you make a great point, because in regards to the empowerment, because there seems to be this empowerment movement amongst women, right? Women want equal this, equal that, and equal the other. But most who are pushing for this equality do not know a fraction of what you just shared. So it would seem as if we started at or dealing with the fundamentals, then we would realize how, as you just mentioned, how powerful the female really is. So in regards to teaching this information to our daughters, bearing in mind, mommy has to have it first herself. Who is responsible for teaching this to our sons and our daughters? Is it just mommy, or is it mommy and dad?
Oh, definitely both parents for sure, because we model how we care for menstruating women and care for wombs in our households, right? There's a lot of modeling that takes place. I definitely think that it needs to be spearheaded by women, right? Because a lot of this is woman to woman transmission. I wouldn't expect men to be able to teach their daughters quite extensively, but I think men are really great at holding space and protecting and nurturing and giving space for women to be cared for. So making sure that they have access to the quality of foods that they need, access to the rest and support that they need to honor their wombs, access to information and resources. I think our brothers are really excellent allies and facilitators of us reclaiming that knowledge and passing it on to our children. The other thing I wanted to say in relation to empowerment is that there was a really strong push with modern feminism that we're supposed to do what men can do in spite of our bodies. So birth control takes, the possibility of pregnancy off the table. So now we can compete with men in the workspace, or pain medication doesn't allow me to be stopped by my period challenges. So I'm just going to keep pushing and competing. And I feel like we need to revive more of a womanism as opposed to feminism that
Right.
allows women to thrive as women according to our design, and to know that we don't have to do exactly what men do because, you know, with all due respect, our brothers can't do what we do. So there really is no competition. However, there can be collaboration because we build community together. I see it as our collective responsibility.
Fantastic. Just one more point before I bring in my co-host in regards to some of the chemicalization, if you will, of the type of products that we put on near, you know, and in our bodies. So obviously women use sanitary napkins or towels on a monthly basis. Is there any connection between the type of material that is used and the corrupting and the poisoning of the womb?
Directly and definitely, yes. When you are bleaching cotton, so, you know, there's a couple of kind of socio-cultural kind of hang-ups that impact our wellness. We have an obsession with whiteness, right?
Right.
Cotton's already white, but it's not white enough to be in a pad. So we're going to bleach the already white cotton to make it even whiter. And the dioxins that are released when we bleach cotton are going to be sitting right up there in adjacency to our vulva and our very sensitive, porous, blood-rich vaginal tissues. And that's all being absorbed into our body. Similarly with tampons, you know, many people know if you ever buy a tampon, it says there's a warning for toxic shock syndrome. And again, you have these bleached cotton products wrapped in plastic. Let's not forget the plastic, right? Plastic is also disruptive to the endocrine system. So we are essentially bleaching cotton, wrapping it in plastic and putting it in our most, you know, absorbable, sensitive body parts. Tampons, again, plastic applicator, cotton bleached, inserting it and having that sit inside our bodies for hours at a time. The chemicals themselves are a definite factor in our vaginal health, our vaginal microbiome, our womb health. I hosted a program last week, and one woman said that all she did was switch from disposable kind of conventional period products to reusable cloth pads, and her period pain had stopped. And she didn't mention anything else that she did. And this is not the first person. Some people, just that switch over from toxic to non-toxic is enough to start to shift their womb health. Some women who have recurring vaginal infections, they start to switch their products and they start to see a shift. I just want to also point out that there are non-toxic disposable pads. So I know the idea of washing your own pads might feel very 1950s for some people. Some of our elders are probably like, we did that many years ago. But there are now emerging products coming onto the market where they are disposable pads. They look and feel like any other pad, but they're not bleached cotton. They're organic cotton. They don't have plastic additives. They're biodegradable, so they're not going to sit on the planet for hundreds of years. So thankfully, we're at a time where the market is presenting us alternatives. We just need to bring our awareness and invest in them, because investing in these alternatives means investing in our health.
Just lastly then, before I hand over, would you say that that is the main source of corrupting and poisoning of the womb because it's such a regular occurrence? Or is there something more destructive that should be taken into immediate or under immediate consideration?
That's also a good one. I would say I don't see it as the biggest contributor. I see you know, there's actually a couple of lawsuits out circulating around like relaxers and how it contributes to fibroids. I'm not sure. To me, it's a combination from between, I feel like our stress, to be honest, the stress that we are normalizing, especially for modern women, I think is the biggest factor. I think it's even more critical a factor and a more dangerous a factor than our poor food choices. And that's a close one too, because our access to food quality is huge. Food is huge medicine. So those two are really like neck and neck for, because literally what happens when we keep sustaining high levels of stress, we actually, our bodies may turn off ovulation. And if we turn off ovulation, then we don't get the natural cyclical hormonal balance that we should have. And we can't produce enough of the hormones that we need because our body is pulling those hormonal precursors to make more stress hormones. So it's actually extracting what we need to make progesterone to make more cortisol instead. So our stress and our food choices are the two bigger indicators, problems to address before the period products, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go. You ready, Sister Savina? If not, I'll go. All right. Oh my goodness, this is an awesome conversation right here. Okay, I have a few questions, but I'm only gonna ask one.
Okay.
All right.
I have time. Come on.
What foods tend to affect hormone levels the most? Which key foods do you think, or your research has shown affects our hormones the most in a negative way?
I would say sugar is a really big one. There's a lot of sugar in a lot of our foods, and this constant sweetening of, especially with, kind of processed sugar. I'm not talking about naturally occurring sugar that we find in fruits and dates and other foods that are naturally sweet, but added sugar is really problematic. It turns on a lot of inflammation. Like that one's another one. Between that and the seed oils are also very inflammatory. So those two in my mind are kind of neck and neck. The amount of sugar that we're consuming on a regular basis, processed sugar, as well as our vegetable oil, canola oil, those trans fat seed oils are also very inflammatory on the body. Very not supportive of hormonal balance for sure. Even though some of them might have a little heart healthy label on it, a lot of them are really damaging for our hormones.
Okay, you need to list more than the canola.
Okay, vegetable. Want me to put it in the chat? Corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. Did I say canola? Yeah, canola was one that was really marketed as being healthy, but it really is not for us. So things that they're generally considered seed oils in the family of seed oils. Sesame is an exception, even though it is a seed. But on the opposite side of it, since people are taking notes anyway, the oils that we do want more of that are more anti-inflammatory and more hormone supportive are going to be your saturated oils like your coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. Sesame oil, I don't think is a problem. Definitely that one doesn't come up as much as being a problem. What's another cooking oil? Those would probably be the top ones that I would say. Oh, and then your animal source, like your grass-fed butter, your grass-fed ghee. These are also oils that are supportive for hormones and very anti-inflammatory. Butter, ghee, yeah, like the kind of those tallow, some of those wholesome pasture raised oils would also be in that anti-inflammatory category.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sister, what I'd like to ask you is, what does a healthy period look like?
Yes, that's important. This is a really important question because if we go to a doctor right now, they'll say that having a period once every 16 to 45 days is fine. Bleeding anywhere from 3 to 10 days is fine. And they'll probably also tell you that whatever's normal for you is fine. Holistically, in holistic medicine, in any tradition of wellness that I'm aware of that predates modern medicine, that wouldn't measure as healthy at all. A healthy period for the first, there's a couple of different indicators of a healthy period. One, it comes every 28 to 30 days, right? 29 days on average is ideal, but that a new period is starting once every 28 to 30 days. You're not having 2 periods a month. You're not skipping months. That's the first indicator of a healthy period. The second has to do with the color. And if anyone's feeling a little like, whoa, sister, lean in a little bit, because, we have to have these conversations. A healthy period starts and ends red. All right. So there are women in your life and you're offering support for them, for our brothers here. A healthy period needs to start and end red. That's how we know that there's healthy blood supply to the womb. The period needs to be without clots, without cramps, without pain, without significant PMS and mood disorders. We've also normalized as a culture PMS and erratic moods. And we need to be mindful that those are indicators that our hormones are off balance, and we need to address that. The last indicator I would say of a healthy period, other than it being clotted, I would say that we should be able to recognize the indicators of fertility very clear in our menstrual cycle. There should be a significant noticeable presence of cervical mucus that's fertile around the time we ovulate. And so even though the period, we consider the period the actual shedding and bleeding that we see, but really the entire menstrual cycle, those are some of the factors we also need to consider. Is that, are we seeing fertile cervical mucus, so that we know we're ovulating and that we are having evident robust signs of fertility. And one more thing I'll just put into context, this is not just like out of my head. When you statistically look for the highest chances of conception, these are what we see. So statistically, when they study women who were having fertility challenges, they found that when they were to get, the closer they got to this kind of north, I call it a true north, like on a compass of a period, the more effortless conception was. And you can't separate the period from fertility outcomes, because that's why we menstruate. So this is scientifically the type of period that has the highest chances of conception is what's considered a healthy period, which is considered a fertile period. Oh, also the bleeding should be 4 days of light to medium bleeding. This heavy bleeding, soaking through your clothes, soiling your bed, having to double up on period products is also an indicator that the hormones are off. There should be, the period bleeding should go light to medium and then medium to light. It should never get to the point where you're having to combine period products like tampons and pads, or wear overnight pads and change them throughout the day. That's also an indicator that things are not healthy.
Thank you. And just to follow up, you said no pain-free, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, can you just define pain? What do you mean by that?
So there's a difference between sensation and discomfort, right?
Mhm.
Pain is a sensation that creates a sense of discomfort, a sense of, ooh, where there's a pause, there's some kind of restraint. You definitely know when you're feeling intense pain, when you want to take a pain reliever, right? We're clear on that threshold of pain.
Right.
But because we've normalized for so long that periods are supposed to be painful, women don't even call it pain anymore. They just call it cramps. So they just call it their period. But a healthy period, you should feel warmth in your womb. You should feel the sensation that you are menstruating without the discomfort of, I need to do something, I need to stop doing something, I need to take something. So I would say, once the sensation you feel becomes actual discomfort, I call that pain.
Okay, all right. Well, and sisters underline, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, but I don't know of any teenagers who have not, had discomfort. Virgin, and it's hard, I guess, because obviously they are, as a teenager, it's brand new. So it could be sensation being confused with pain. But with regards to, a parent trying to advise a child, how would you help them to kind of make that distinction? And again, I know it's difficult because you have different pain thresholds, But how would you describe that to someone who was trying to help, a child to understand what the difference is or what to look out for?
Mm. I think when it comes to, if you're trying to support a young person, I mean, young people generally have a lot of habits that can make periods challenging, right? They tend to not do a great job of eating well, or
Right.
getting enough rest. They tend to kind of rely on caffeine and sugar and other things that are very inflammatory for the body. So no, I think when we're talking to our young people, we need to let them know that if you're starting to feel discomfort, listen to that before it becomes pain, right?
Right.
Slow down before that becomes pain. That's when you need to take a little break. Keep your womb warm, right? Drink and eat warm foods, drink warm drinks, have herbal teas, lay down and rest. And so I think one of the ways that we can be really great allies as parents or guardians or aunties or big sisters, depending on the young person in our life, is to really nurture that and give space for that, to encourage them to take a rest, lay down. You don't have to go so hard right now. Let me put on some ginger tea for you. Let me put on some chamomile. Like, we can be allies. We don't just need to watch them suffering. We can actually create space, lighten their load so that they can rest and honor their period, because the period is a time for rest and rejuvenation. And the more that we give our menstruation time, the more that it gets the rest and rejuvenation it really needs, it does help us balance our hormones for the entire month. So I would say yield. When you feel that discomfort, pause, listen, slow down, and address that before it gets compounded into full-blown pain. I can't go to school. I can't function. I need a pain reliever.
Thank you.
Chantal, Sister Chantal, what I would ask you is, with all of this imbalance, and the average woman would actually be suffering from some of the symptoms that you have addressed during your presentation, and are actually suffering as we speak from chemical imbalance. Now, because most doctors don't actually know what you shared, it's not something that they advise on to the depth that you have shared. So where would somebody go for advice to recalibrate if they were suffering from the symptoms that you have presented to us this evening?
That's excellent. Another excellent question. So that was one of the intentions that I really wanted to achieve with my book, for people to know all of the other allies they have, because the reality is you go to your primary care provider and you're going to be offered, one of two, right, options. It's either pain medicine or birth control, right? That's what's going to be offered. And so I was really intentional in the book to really showcase and highlight all of the other allies that we have, right? We do have peri-steam hydrotherapists, which are people who are trained in the therapeutic use of vaginal steaming to address hormonal issues and period discomfort, as well as support women with other challenges where they're addressing fibroids, endometriosis, et cetera. So these are trained and certified practitioners that have a really strong understanding of the period and how to support it in a healthy way. I also introduce readers to acupuncturists. Acupuncturists are brilliant. They have excellent tools for understanding imbalance in the body and knowing how to decode the imbalances in the body based on the menstrual symptoms. So I have some interviews with acupuncturists, because traditional Chinese medicine has very great assessment tools to understanding where you're at and what you need to work on, right? Do I need to work on my digestion? Do I need to work on my rest? Do I need to work on my nutrition? They have a really excellent system. And so peri-steam hydrotherapy draws from traditional Chinese medicine a good bit. You also have Ayurvedic practitioners. Ayurvedic practitioners also have an understanding of the body's constitution. We have Unani Tib, naturopathic practitioners. They also have a really great understanding on how to support menstrual imbalance. And I would also add to that, you have functional medicine practitioners are a little harder to come by, but also homeopaths are really great. Homeopathic medicine also can be really supportive of menstrual imbalances as well.
So in regards to the duplication of yourself, right? Because I would like to see a couple of million of you, because one of you is not enough. So what can we do about the duplication of Sister Chantal Blake? How is that process going to develop?
I believe it starts with the book, right? I also believe, what my vision is to really train embodied period educators, because I don't have any interest in someone parroting information that they read in a book.
Right.
Because I always say that people teach from their states. People say that spiritually, right? You teach from your spiritual state, but even your nervous system, that's the state that you teach from. So you could be saying you could copy this whole script, everything I said as a transcript. You can read it verbatim. But I think what people hear when they hear me is my lived experience with this information, my lived reality. And I really believe in this. I know that when women are well, the world is well, because I see it all the time. And so how to get women to that point of communicating this information with conviction and with integrity, and from a felt sense, like in their body, like, yes, I've gotten from that place and I'm here now, and I do love my period, and I'm passionate about spreading it. I'd like to see, and I'm working on creating a type of mentorship or embodied period leadership development, something that really allows people to take the content in the book, make it real in their lives, but also a curriculum to translate that into teaching it to young women, whether it's in your schools, in your mosques, in your churches, in your community centers, your youth centers, etc. So that really is my vision, is that we have more embodied period educators in the world.
We would like to partner with you on that. So please keep us informed.
Yes.
We would love to partner with you. And we'd love to send for you to come here to the UK and to do a tour of the UK.
It would be an honor. Would love to.
And let's get the diaries out. Let's try and make this work, because we would love to sponsor a tour for you, because this is much better than, trying to organize a tour for a rapper. We've got to get our people out of wanting to faint when they see a rapper to wanting to faint when they see you, because you have helped us to pass from death into life, sorry. So, this whole celebrity culture that we have for ignorance, those of us who have been blessed with an aspect of enlightenment, we must amplify light whenever we see it. And you have brought such a bright light to this platform this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that.
Oh, it's a great honor, because I can see an old world going out and a new world coming in once what is spread far and wide. Because women need the confidence of the knowledge that you have shared. And you said something very apt. I'm actually speaking about this on Sunday in regards to a good, eloquent speaker doesn't necessarily make a good leader. And many of us have taken people's eloquence for good leadership, guidance, and good counsel. And it's caused us to end up in hell. So as you said, not only are you well educated and well versed in the subject, you're passionate about it, and you're not driven by financial gain, and you deserve tremendous financial gain, because this is in your heart, as opposed to just an aspiration for the sake of trying to climb up in Western society. So we would love to get the diaries out, and we want to make this work. And we will be, as we launch the Spiritual Injection app. Did I say the Spiritual Injection app? The Spiritual Injection app. We want to feature your book very prominently on our app to ensure that all who are on this line today, that they acquire a copy of the book. So I want to get to the book now, just as we close. So can I get a witness? Can I get some number one in the chat who actually is chomping at the bit for the book? I see some ones. Ones and ones.
Come on now.
One of the things I ain't told you yet, and happy Jamaican Independence Day, Sister Chantal.
Mhm.
I didn't tell you she's from Jamaica, did I?
I know it.
You did it.
Thank
I was going to
you.
save that to the end.
Out now. Thank you.
so let me see these ones, because Sister Chantal, share with us where we can get the book and what you expect those who read the book to extract from the book.
Yeah. Thank you for all of that. Like the vision for the book came to me very early one morning, around the time of prayer. I was pregnant with one of my children, and the vision for it was really clear to me. And because I work with women all the time, and when you work with women, you realize that all of the opportunities that were missed before now that really contribute to where we are in the present moment. It's the information they didn't have when they were 12 or 15 or 18 or 21. And it just, that combination of period ignorance, period shame, and period trauma just compounds and really results, gives birth to the challenges that we face. And so I often say, like, this book is my prayer in like 150 pages, because it's what I want every woman to experience, because I genuinely, this is an act of service, because I know that whatever great work women are doing in the world, not that they need to do any work to be great, but whatever greatness women are bringing to the world in their homes, their communities, and whatever spaces, I see how that just gets turned up and amplified when we have our womb health and our hormonal balance to add to that, as opposed to taking from that life purpose and that light and that vision and that work. And so my vision for this book was to get together everything that I teach and that I pour and coach women through, and really make it readable for young people. But the reality is it's for every woman, but it's written that a teen or a preteen can understand it. So the book is called Peaceful Periods, Holistic Womb Care for Teens, because that's the target reader audience, but really it's a book for all of us. And I really do want the parents and the mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts to be reading it in tandem with the young people in their life, so that they know how they can hold the space and support them. So the vision for the book is that young women get really rooted in an understanding of why you're having a period, because we're taught how to deal with periods before we're taught why. Why are you menstruating? What's happening here? And what is the significance of what's going on? Then we set up a baseline to understand what is a healthy period. As we talked today, as we said, what is a healthy period and how you can address any variation of that. So if the color is a little bit off, this is what we do, right? It's irregular, your period goes missing, this is how we handle that. You're reaching a certain age, you haven't started your period yet, this is what we need to do. So I intended for it to be really actionable, very, very practical. Throughout the book, there are prompts and reflection points where you can really bring this into your deeper awareness. So there's activities, there are journal prompts, charts that they can create. And then I also introduce them to all of their allies, because usually this conversation might be happening between like mom and daughter and maybe doctor and daughter, but you have a whole team of other supportive therapists, resources, and allies to be having this conversation with. And so that's another big aim of the book, was introducing people to these practitioners, but we also deal with some of the life skills, right? Body positivity, right? Your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, setting boundaries, self-care, and also this conversation about period products. There's a chapter called Can Period Power Change the World? And we talk about the importance of selecting your period care products consciously and knowing the impact you have, and also the impact you have when you're fully well, when you're getting to experience the vibrancy and the cyclicity of how you were designed. You just get to turn up everything great that you're doing in the world. It just gets amplified so much greater and bigger. So I think that's That's how I summarize the book. It's been reviewed by board certified doctors, acupuncturists, homeopaths. I don't have a doctor, a DR to add to my name at this point in time, but I'm backed and supported by medical professionals that also share this vision and also, present and want to share this holistic alternative model of gynecology and feminine care for women.
You're the realest DR that I've ever spoken to in this area. So, there's a lot of people who have labels that are just symbols with no substance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't carry the symbol, but you are substance personified. Let me tell you that for nothing. You are substance. So with that said, I'm pleased to declare that there's as much males as there were females who put the ones in the chats, which is good, because brothers, each and every one of us who has a daughter or a sister or a niece, we need to get her a gift. Them gifts. And don't take for granted that just because your sister may be 40, 50, 60, that it's too late for her to learn. Let's get her a copy of the book as a gift, And one last question, my sister. So did everybody pledge to get somebody a gift? Because your Christmas is coming up, some of you. So you don't have to go to Marks and Spencer's this year and buy, nonsense. You can actually give your family and your loved ones the gift of knowledge. Okay. So with that said, sister, last question from me. I went to buy a pair of trousers a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it was last week. And I asked the man, what is this material? Because it was very stretchy. They're very expensive trousers. And it might have been the label. So I said, what is this material, to see whether I was getting value for money? He said it was polyester. I'm like, polyester for this amount of money? I said, I don't wear polyester, because I was of the mind that polyester has a negative effect on my chemical composition of my body. Thus, the material like polyester, these plastic-based materials that we cover our bodies with, does that have an ill effect on the womb, my sister? I hope we didn't lose her.
She might have dropped off, but that's okay.
She said that might happen.
She might, she's in Senegal. But that's a great question. Yes, great question.
Yeah. So hasn't it been a delight, Sister Sarah, Sister Sylvina?
Oh my goodness, I have some more questions. We had questions in the chat. She has a beautiful class that she does for teens. I know my daughters have attended her class, just a wealth of knowledge and just such a beautiful, beautiful spirit. Yeah.
It's the epitome, isn't it, of what the spiritual injection stands for, with regards to just tangible information that you can apply immediately that doesn't break the bank. It's the epitome of what we stand for. Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm elated. And the beauty about what we've been discussing today is, some people think that this should just be a private female chat, right? Leave men ignorant in the corner somewhere. And then it's only when the woman runs out of sanitary, can you go and buy this for me? Well, he would go and buy it for you if he was educated about what he's going to buy. And the brother just wouldn't go to the local corner shop and buy you, napkins that's going to destroy your womb. He would ensure that he doesn't go to the little Turkish shop on the corner. He would make sure that he goes to the Whole Food store or the quality store and gets you quality, because he's educated. All right. So it's very important to ensure that the males are involved in this type of high level conversation. Would you agree?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
So, Sister Chantal, thank you for coming back. So in regards to that last question that I just shared with you in regards to the type of material that we use, what effect, if any, does that have on the cellular level?
Yeah, that's a good one too. You know, I'm always a big advocate for breathable natural fibers. So trying to avoid synthetic materials, especially around the groin, right? Around anything that's going to be coming close. So your undergarments, you know, if women are using a lot of body shaping things, you know, it's really hard for waist and lymph to circulate when we're doing a lot of like Spanx and, you know, really tight constricted undergarments in terms of underwear and what we're wearing, definitely breathable. So your cotton, things that are going to facilitate circulation and not holding moisture are going to be really helpful for our microbiome, and just overall, you know, health. You know, you don't want to be keeping in that breathability. You want there to be an exchange of air and fluid circulation of air.
Very good. So you would advise against many of these plastic-based materials.
Yeah, and that's tricky because it's very enticing. I've seen a lot of recycled, I've seen underwear made from recycled material, but when it's recycled plastic, I am a big supporter of shoes made from recycled plastic because that's not coming into direct contact with your skin, but anything on your skin is going to get absorbed. So that's why everything that I mentioned, not just your hair care, your skincare, but what you wear, anything on the skin surface, at some level it's getting absorbed into the body. Our skin's it's our largest organ and very absorbable. So yeah, I would say stick to your cotton, your linen, your wool, and bamboo, but be conscientious of your polyester blends, synthetic materials. I think viscose is another one that's quite popular as synthetic as well.
Fantastic. So closing remarks, Sister Chantal, what would you like to leave with our audience this evening?
What do I want to leave with the audience? I mean, you know, I'm amazed that it's a Thursday. It's not even the weekend. And so many of you want to be here for this conversation. It inspires me. It gives me a lot of hope. You need to know that the book is for pre-order right now. So you're not going to get it in the mail in 2 weeks, but within 2 months, God willing, is the plan that you'll have the physical book with you. If you're in the US, UK, and Canada, once we have the final book, we'll ship it further. But really, yes, please give it to the women in your life, the young women, the elder women. There's healing for all of us in it. And I really appreciate that the brothers really showed up today. I'm really touched. I've never spoken to so many men on this topic before. So I mean, obviously the spiritual injection community is the place to be, that so many of you are so down and so willing to be a part of this conversation. So really my gratitude to you.
Our gratitude to you. We are indebted, we are honored, we have been blessed, you know, to hear you and to really do our best to absorb you. We've been truly blessed. And during your opening remarks, I was saying to myself, man, I'm looking forward to going over the replay, because what you shared with us today is not for today, it's to be studied. It's study material. And as originally stated, anything we can do to help the process of speeding up the publication of the book and the delivery of it, then please do not hesitate to let us know. We have translators amongst us who I know, Sister Darikatin, I saw you gave more than one, you know, you gave multiple ones, and we have our sisters who would translate this for you, and brothers, into the French language, and make sure that this book goes into Africa and the French Caribbean, and obviously dirty France itself. So with that said, we are definitely here to help you to spread this far and wide. And hopefully, you know, we can get you to come over to the UK for a book signing.
Would love that.
Phenomenal. We look forward to having you, you know, we really do. Is that right, spiritual injection? Can I get a second on that motion that I've just put on the floor? Can I get a second? Okay, very good, very good. So Sister Tara, Sister Sylvina, your closing remarks?
Well, here is the book. So this is what we're looking forward to pre-ordering. And my sentiments exactly, I was actually writing down here, as you mentioned, us, you know, co-partnering with our sister Chantal, a few ideas that I had. So yeah, most definitely, it's just fundamental, achievable, foundational information that we all need to have. I say basic. What Chantal brought in itself is not basic, but the implementation of it is basic once we make it part of our culture. So I look forward to being a part of the things that you mentioned.
Fantastic. Sister Tara.
I like the fact that you brought the talking about periods as a positive thing, not something that's negative, something that we know is a part of what women have been doing for millennia. So we just need to take back control. And I just love that sentiment, just to take back control and make sure we have those 4 releases and those 4 things that we're going to bring back to ourselves. Thank you so much for joining us. I know I enjoyed myself. I'm sure that the audience did as well. Thank you so much, Sister Chantal.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to close this. The Holy Quran teaches us, you know, male and females, to reverence the womb. And you would have thought the only person worthy of reverence is God himself, because to reverence is to prostrate, to bow down, to be in awe over. So it behooves us that we would not focus on highlighting the significance to God himself, the precious womb of the female. So there is no cursing of the womb. There is no cursing of any of the process. It's living in a cursed world that has caused all of these, you know, negative responses to that which God Almighty created for abundant good. So thank you, Sister Chantal. Thank you, Sister Tara. Thank you, Sister Sylvina. And thank you to each and every one of you who have distributed tickets